Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined once again by Kevin Graham. Kevin, we're here to talk about Celtic versus Livingston. The Celtic depleted team has been announced. Let's kickstart with a wee bit of football. What's your thoughts on the team line?
My heart sank when I saw it. I mean, obviously we got a league team maybe about half an hour before, and all the positivity I had on Monday night when I saw quite a few of the inexperienced lads coming in that we were going to get a look at has now disappeared when you see this side today. This is basically this side's basically been put together like an out-of-date meat raffle. It's one of these sides that you see like getting played on a pre-season friendly and also somewhere like that. Can anybody work out what formation we're actually playing?
Well, we'll try and talk our way through that, Kev, because, I mean, you look at Ralston, the only place he can play is right back, right? Mm-hmm. And then you ask yourself, where's Frimpong? Are we playing two up front? Is Rogic one of the guys up front? Is Frimpong going to then be part of the four in the middle? It's a difficult one. It really is. So let's start with the defence. How do you see the defence? Is it a flat back four with Ralston, Duffy, Beaton and Laxalt, do you think?
You've got... Aye, that's how I'm reading it as well. But what's that going to do with Hazard and goals? I mean, Hazard is I'm not going to call Hazard a young goalkeeper because he's 22. And 22 is no young. He's an inexperienced goalkeeper who has been proven that he's got problems with his decision-making at times. And he's got another defensive partnership in front of him there. What is it going to do to young Welsh? Young Welsh should never have been dropped for that side.
I agree with that.
To bring back and Beaton, who basically sold our season down the river. He put the lid on our season going down the river by actually pulling down Alfredo Morelos. And he walks straight back into the team. It doesn't matter how depleted we are. It's a terrible man management. It's shocking man management.
There's certain players, Beaton being one of them, Frimpong another actually, if they're fit under Neil Lennon, Kevin, they're kind of go-to guys, aren't they? I mean, Frimpong always plays if he's fit, and Beaton is, as I say, the go-to. Someone said we should stop calling him a converted midfielder because he never plays in midfield. It is getting to that stage, isn't it?
I don't see him as a midfielder now. It kind of annoys me when guys who get paid to give their opinions on the telly keep on calling him a converted midfielder. He's played centre-half now for 2 years, 2 seasons. He plays centre-half for his international side as well. He's a central defender now.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the back four, if indeed we are playing a back four, because I can't see Ralston playing anywhere else. I think Laxalt could probably fit in as part of a back three, but will be Ralston, Duffy, Beaton, Laxalt. Then you've got to probably ask yourself, are we playing with two up front? You would hope so. At home, is he going to play Rogic further up the park there, Kev, maybe alongside or just behind Johnson, do you think, before we get into the question of what's happening in the midfield?
You would hope that they're going to keep the diamond, which has worked well. But when I wrote the team down on paper, I put it as a 4-2-3-1, with Johnson as the centre forward, the three behind being Frimpong, Rogic, and Turnbull, with Sorrow and McGregor as the two pivots. So that was the only way I could write it down, because I can't see Rogic being a second centre forward, and I can't see Turnbull being a second centre forward either.
A couple of things about the bench. First of all, you've already mentioned there in relation to young Welsh. This has happened to him twice this season, isn't it? He's come in. I mean, he wasn't the worst performer on the park against Rangers and AC Milan, Kevin, it's got to be said, and then he just disappeared from view for some time. He then comes back in at a time where we really, it was an hour of need, wasn't it? It was like every fit player was being considered for the lineup against Hibs last Monday. I thought he performed well. I think universally, what I've seen online anyway, and with our WhatsApp group for ACSOM, people were pretty chuffed with the way he was playing. There was the point made that he seemed to be organising like a Uruguayan international with World Cup experience, whose parent club is AC Milan, and here we have young Welsh organising them at corner kicks. I thought he deserved another game. The other one that I'm looking at is Robertson. Obviously, he's returned from his loan spell, Kevin, from Gillingham. He went down there. I think he performed fairly well down there. I seen him against Cluj. he was talked through the game by Encham, but I thought he played particularly well over in Romania. So here's another one, is Harper. There's been a lot of talk around Harper. What is the situation at the moment, Kevin? Because we've spoken about some of the other young kids that have left Celtic. Now, what I would say is this is a different scenario to Celtic releasing a player who then goes on to make a name for himself, because that, I think we've got to differentiate between that. This isn't a situation where we release Andy Robertson, he goes on to prove his worth. This is young guys who are being taken from Celtic before they're able to develop to first team potential, and obviously you've got the boy Hepburn, Morrison. We've seen it with other clubs coming in. Blackburn Rovers have come in, Man City have come in and taken our youngsters. There's a suggestion that Harper will be the next one in that kind of long line now of young players who we're not actually seeing the value of, and it's not because we're releasing them. Other clubs are coming in. I mean, that doesn't really fill me with confidence for the future. What about yourself?
It doesn't fill me with confidence whatsoever. What seems to be happening from an outsider looking in is these players are getting to 17, 18, 19. And some, in the case of Barry Hepburn and Liam Morrison, it was 16. And they realise that there's no progress for them. They won't make it at Celtic Football Club. I know for a fact there's an agent who was actively talking his clients against signing professional deals with Celtic because the development is awful after they get into the first team. And what argument, if you're a young academy player today, if you're Stephen and you're looking at Stephen Welsh, I mean, you look at, I can't remember Welsh's age. I don't know if he's 20 or 21, but these guys are not young guys anymore. They're inexperienced guys, but they should have at least.
Welsh is 20.
Is he 20?
Yeah.
He should have at least, if he's going to make it at Celtic Football Club, he should have at least 10, 12 games by this point in the first team.
Kev, I made that point when we went into the Rangers game. This isn't us going off on a tangent. It's very relevant to where we are. We're playing a lot of young kids due to everything else that's happened that we've covered in some great depth. But we said this when we went into the game against Rangers and Welsh was announced the night before the game. And he'd only one appearance for Celtic under his belt at that stage, Kev, which was the game against Hamilton in the previous season. At that stage, that is bad squad management, it's bad youth development, because like you say there are plenty of games through a normal season at Celtic. So for the last 9 seasons where we've won the league, sometimes comfortably, there's enough games where you make sure that young Welsh or Robertson or many of the other names that we're seeing now on the Celtic team sheet are getting an appearance, even if it's a sub appearance. Get them a few starts as well. There's plenty of games here, Kev, where you look at not this season so much, where you would think, right, we're at home, we would expect to win this game fairly comfortably, let's start introducing, and I don't mean wholesale changes, 1 or 2 at a time, Kev, so that when the time comes, like the situation we're in at the moment, or the situation we faced against Rangers where you're having to throw a kid in, at least they do have, like you say, a dozen or even 20 appearances under the belt. At the age of 20, you would expect that. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, and this is, I think it's a problem with the whole of Scottish football. I heard Jim Orr talking about it yesterday, and him and Laura were really, really good yesterday talking about the development of players. But this actually reeks why young players are leaving us, and that could be an over exaggeration. But if you were a young player having a look at that, you see Welsh playing well. He played well. He done okay against Rangers. He done okay against AC Milan. Then he disappears for months. You bring him back in against Hibs. He organises a defence against Hibs, and he gets dropped for the next game. That for me, that's bad. That's poor management, and there seems to be poor management with all our young players from about 17 to 21. You look at the guy Harper, for his first game on a Monday night. It looked like he could have took a breath a couple of times. It looked like he struggled a couple of times. But now we're going, well, he's thinking about disappearing in New York Red Bulls. And you're going, well, does he not see his future at Celtic? Is he looking at the training? Is he looking at the setup? Is he going, I'm not being developed here? And that's something that the club need to look at going forward. And that's something that's got to change. How long has it been since we've started the academy at Kirkintilloch, where they stay?
The residential.
And the only player I think they've produced from that is Kieran Tierney. I think I would be right in saying Tierney's the only player that's came out of that residential. Liam Morrison came out of it, Barry Hepburn came out of it, and both left and went to Bayern Munich. So Why are these players not staying at Celtic? And that's a question for the people that are running Celtic. It's a question for the football department at Celtic. And I'm going to say this. I'm going to say the reason that they're leaving is Neil Lennon.
Right, okay. Because you don't feel he's going to develop youth at Celtic, Kev?
I think if you're an agent looking at your young player at 16, 17-year-old, and you're looking at the setup at Celtic at the moment, you'll go, Neil Lennon's not going to develop my asset. And I'm going to use agent speak there. You will say, Neil Lennon's not going to develop my asset. Celtic are not going to develop my asset because they do not give youth a chance.
Now, we're going to have a look at some of the comments coming through. It's a busy day today. There are plenty of fans looking to have their view on Celtic put across, and hopefully we can provide that platform. So obviously you're watching us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Make your comments, get involved. Andy Echo Scott. You really think Welsh is better than Beaton? At centre-half, I would say yes.
I think if you're basing it on their last two games, if you're basing it on current form, Beaton got himself sent off against Rangers, and Welsh didn't put a foot wrong on Monday night. Mm-hmm. So on that basis, I would say Welsh should have kept his place in the team today.
I think so. I mean, it's got to be on form, and that's why, obviously, when Barca came back into the team, and the reason given, Kevin, was because we bought him as a number one. Surely it should be on form. So if you've got that jersey, or you are the man, between the sticks, it remains so until you lose form, or you get injured, and that's why Barca's dropped out initially. But again, that must be very frustrating for a young player trying to get a few games consecutively, trying to get some momentum, trying to get some game time in the legs. Talking of game time, Kev, the other guy I was going to mention on the bench is Greg Taylor. Now, how must he be feeling over the last couple of games, knowing that we're 13 players short and he still can't get a start?
I says on Monday night that was more likely to do with tactical. Again, Laxalt and Frimpong didn't really create much things on Monday night. And when I was having a look at the side, and you mentioned it yesterday about some of the changes that we could make, the only changes I was going to make, I was going to bring in Taylor for Laxalt, and I was going to bring in Ewan Henderson or Scott Robertson for Tom Rogic. That was only two changes I was going to make. And I was maybe toying with starting Okoflex instead of Harper, just to give him a start as well, because just to let him see that feeling starting again for Celtic at home.
Yeah,
let him get that under his belt. But obviously, the management team think they know better than me sitting here, and they've went with the most experienced 11 they could cobble together, which is probably it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with Ralston as well. We've not seen Anthony Ralston for some time, but it does come down to experience, and you look at the amount of games perhaps that he's played in the first team, but it doesn't always work, because I felt that on Monday night, Kevin, Tom Rogic was one of the least effective players on the park. He, if the leaked wages are to be believed, and I think they are fairly accurate from what I understand, Rogic is one of the highest paid players at the club. He's one of the most experienced players on that part today, yet I felt on Monday that he could have done a hell of a lot more, Kev, because it's the experienced players you're looking at under these circumstances of the game against Hibs and today against Livy, where there's so many inexperienced players in there, that you're wanting guys like McGregor and Rogic and Duffy to really step up.
Yeah, and I was quite disappointed with that on Monday night. I was disappointed with Callum McGregor in his captain role. I was disappointed in Laxalt. He's 28. He's played in World Cups. He should actually be carrying this team through. Same with McGregor, same with Rogic as well. They had to help the young lads in that team. And I saw somebody arguing it wasn't a weakened side. Well, it was a far weakened bench. When you have a look at the players that we had to bring on, and you look at our bench today, that's where the absolute folly of going to Dubai came to bite us. You look at that bench today and you go, who's going to come on and change that game if we need it? You need the experienced guys to step up. But on Monday night, we were lightweight up front with a lightweight front line. Mm-hmm. Exactly the same as we have been with a heavyweight front line. with Ayeti up front, with Edouard up front, with Griffiths up front. We just struggle to create chances all night. So it doesn't seem to matter who you play in the positions. We just seem there's just been a fundamental lack of the basics.
Yeah, and we've said it all season, really, the lack of width, and a lot of people are saying this is how much we miss Jamesy Forrest. Well, it has been. The left-hand side has been fairly redundant in that respect as well, Kevin, because it doesn't stretch the back line. Hibs, you've seen Hibs at Easter Roads, they realised that, and it wasn't until the 71st minute when Lee Griffiths came on, because Griffiths knows how to stretch the back line. It does to a degree, but a lot better due to his experience, what Harper was trying to do. Harper was trying to stretch the back line by going down the channels. You did see him doing that. So then we get to the stage where you're looking for the creativity, and that's why I think we're getting so many players like Ryan, David Turnbull, even Sorrow now, trying efforts from distance, because we can't carve open the opportunities, Kevin, so they're trying shots from distance. Turnbull can often pick out a beautiful wee pass with that dink of his that we seem to see, and hopefully we'll see it again today. But it's very one-dimensional when we get into that attacking position of the park, and we don't use the width well enough, unfortunately, and that's been the state of play all season. So there's other things to discuss today, Kevin. Just after we came off the broadcast yesterday, I was aware of, and by the way, just to echo everything that everybody's saying coming through in the comments, it seems to be the overriding feeling, Kevin, that Welsh certainly should have started today. I mean, I don't think anyone's disagreeing with that, to be fair. Some are saying perhaps Dembele's maybe due a chance from the start, Kev. I think looking at the bench, to answer your question, is he still someone who might make an impact? Is Connell? Is Okoflex? Possibly. I mean, it's maybe an opportunity for one or two of these guys to step up and grasp the opportunity, just like Sorrow and Turnbull did against Lille. And that's what I hope to get out of these two games, as well as you're not dropping any more points today. I hope to get a couple of players who maybe weren't being considered before.
Well, has the message been hammered home today with the benching of Welsh? It doesn't matter how well you do in this game. The tried and trusted, or the tried and untrusted this season especially, are just going to walk back in. So, it must be the way that they're thinking. As I say, young, some of them are young, of course, but inexperienced players. They must be looking at Welsh and thinking, wow, is that even if I play well in the two games, am I just going to be back to months of no football? I mean, it's absolutely, for me, this is poor squad management. This is really, really poor squad management. It's almost as if they're not willing to put up the white flag. It's almost as if to say, look, we're playing our strongest team possible here, and this is what we're not. We need to win this game, and we're going to cobble together 11 experienced players and see where it takes us. There's no shape. There doesn't look to be a shape. There's no identity to the side, and this is another case of just let's hit and hope. Let's see what's going to happen. Just in answer to that, that's not the first time someone has asked that. And by the way, some of the performances this season would drive you to drink. After the game at Celtic Park, when Rangers beat us 2-1, Kev, over a year ago, I went vegetarian. And this year I've gone teetotal. So I don't know what's happening to me. All the vices are being removed slowly but surely as you get a wee bit older on this planet. You try and remove everything that's going to slow down every part of your life. So no, it's just sparkling water. Although, this season could drive you to other things, that's for sure. But what I was saying though, Kev, is yesterday a banner was unfurled. Some people say podcasts, you are there talking about it. What difference, what change can you make? Well, I think that the change that you can make is you can influence maybe the thought process. So if you look at what the Green Brigade are doing, I don't think they're a million miles away from what we're trying to say. They're doing it in a different way. They're protesting in a different way. So the banner was unfurled, and I'm right behind what the Green Brigade are saying. What was your thoughts on that that banner that was unfurled outside Celtic Park yesterday? And then that will lead us on, Kevin, to discuss the suggestion that some action is going to be taken by Dermot Desmond in the not too distant. The Green Brigade are doing what any decent ultra group do all over Europe. They make the protests in the most public and visible place possible. They've done it over the last couple of years where they've had banners in the stadium which basically back up what they say in their statement, that they've warned the Celtic custodians, as they call them, that you falling asleep at the wheel is the biggest danger to all our dreams. And they've had that message for years. It's the same way the meetings that I've been in with the club as well. The club have been warned that they were the biggest danger. The biggest danger was themselves. So with the Green Brigade doing that, I mean, I just like how they've got a quick turnaround with these things. They must really work during the night in that. Look, it was a clear and concise message, and it's a true message. It's not their message is not a knee-jerk message. It's been a message that's been there for years. Where they've been warning the custodians. I mean, they want change. They want fans' representation on the board. Don't we all want change? They just use a different medium to actually try and get change. I mean, it might be funny. The change that we might all get is I can't see Peter Wall being removed. I can see him being moved to a non-executive role.
Right.
When he took away from the front end of the club.
Well, see the big thing with that, talking about the changes that people are demanding now, I think it is important to echo exactly what you said there, Kevin. This isn't a knee-jerk thing because, this season hasn't gone our way. A lot of the time I see arguments that suggest, what about all the good, successful times that you've had under this same regime? One bad season doesn't whitewash that. But as you've quite rightly said there, the message that have been coming out of the Green Brigade, and on ACSOM, I'm going to have to give you some credit this time round, Kevin, because you get plenty of slagging when the opportunity arises, but it's all in fun, it's all friendly, of course. I think over the piece, the 3.5 years that we've been doing a Celtic State of Mind, or just over, the one person who has constantly gone back to that, being asleep at the wheel, the way that we're not recruiting properly, the way that we're not developing youth, the way that the Brendan Rodgers period unravelled, which brought a lot of these things to light, particularly the recruitment side of things, talking about ambition, talking about just keeping your nose ahead of the challenger. These are topics that you have raised. These are topics that the Green Brigade have raised. It's not a case of we're throwing the toys at the pram because we're not top of the league this season.
Exactly. It's only highlighted it to the vast majority. What we've been saying, and you can paper up cracks with treble parades and confetti and silverware all you want, but there was always a fundamental flaw in our club, and it was one man had too much power. There was always a fundamental flaw in our club, which was one man appointed a man that he knew that he could work with, that he was comfortable with, even though that man didn't fit the club at that time. I think 10's been a noose round our neck, and I think we've been a very short-sighted with 10. After Brendan Rodgers, we should have went for another development manager and trust what had happened in the last 5 years under Ronnie and Brendan. We should have trusted in that, not went for a short term. We need a warrior in here. We need a fighter in here. We need a character in here to get us over the line. No, we just needed to believe in somebody that can develop football players. None of our players have developed in 18 months.
So develop football players, but also develop practices within the club, Kev. So if you're looking at the Ronnie, and I don't know, in fact, there's no way it was planned for a succession between Ronnie and Ronnie Deila and Brendan Rodgers. But the 2 years he spent at the club, followed by the time that Brendan Rodgers spent at the club, was instilling different practices. Once, I think, there was issues with Ronnie Deila because he wasn't strong enough in terms of dealing with the senior pros. Everybody knows that happened. But then Brendan Rodgers came in and he was able to implement what I call elite practices. I'm reluctant to call him at that time an elite manager. I think he's on his way to becoming that, Kev. I don't think he was an elite manager when Celtic appointed him, but he implemented elite practices at Celtic Football Club. So as you say, you wanted to continue that, but what we've done is we take a big backward step back to the practices pre-Ronnie Deila, and that's obviously because we've just appointed the exact same manager who was in charge at that stage. Now, I'm pretty sure most of the people who are joining us for the chat today have had a WhatsApp message and the screenshot and all this kind of thing in relation to changes being made at the very top of Celtic Football Club. And to be fair, from a very reliable source, I'm led to believe that what is circulating certainly is fairly accurate. What are you expecting to happen in the next couple of weeks, Kev?
I said that to you just before we came on, Paul, that I was finding it very difficult to try and read. We've said read the room quite a lot over the last 2 weeks, but I was finding it very difficult to try and get the vibe from Celtic Park. Well, it's because I haven't been there for nearly over a year now. I haven't been at Celtic Park, so it's very, very difficult. And I did, a couple of weeks ago, I did actually say, I wonder where Desmond is with us. Because when you look where he's had to make big decisions before, he's made them. And you just wondered what was actually going on. Now, I didn't want to quote about the ins and outs of that message that we've all seen now. All I want is an appointment who has full control of the football club. An appointment that has full control of the football side of the football club. And we bring on a team which is pleasing on the eye, young, vibrant, and makes us want to go and watch Celtic.
And successful. And successful.
And successful as well. But we need to learn, if we go down a route that I want us to go down of developing youth players, that these youth players are going to make mistakes. That the level of success that we've seen in the last 4 years is unprecedented. It has been unprecedented. It's never been done before. So we can't keep on harking back that, we're losing trebles, we're not doing trebles, we're not winning leagues. If we're developing players, if we're developing a culture, developing players, that success will come naturally with that.
Do you think, though, Kevin, if it's done properly, that you can develop players and still have a high level of success? I think it can. I really do. I think the problem is we've not seen a development, therefore we don't trust that talent is there. And yeah, they do come in and they're making mistakes at that level. Of course, that's going to happen. But if you introduce them correctly, you don't throw them in against Rangers and then to mark Ibrahimovic, the midweek after it. That's not how you develop a footballer. That footballer, i.e. Stephen Welsh, should have had 20 games under his belt before that challenge, And those games didn't have to be at the highest end of the Scottish League, never mind European football. You're coming up against Ibrahimovic. I mean, that's just dreadful development. That's panic. That's just throwing somebody right in at the deep end. So I just think we could do the development side of it far, far better, but still get the level of success. Because let's be honest, right? Yeah, I could become accustomed to a treble every year. Of course I could. But we don't expect it every single year. The league is the bread and butter, Kevin. You expect, I would suggest from my perspective, one of the cups you would expect, and you would expect to be making progress in Europe. What is that? What is progress in Europe? Well, if you look at the last 9 seasons, we need to be playing Champions League group football. And then you take it from there. And we've not been doing that consistently enough. And that I think is where we're going to be gauged when it comes to bringing in a higher calibre of player. Because, I mean, what is the calibre of player that we brought in over the last couple of seasons? Where's the success has been? Is the only success been Soro and potentially Julien over the last couple of seasons? I would argue. I know Forrest came in and was a success, but we didn't buy him. So very quickly, before we go in to the game itself, Kevin, because I'm looking at the park, I could see John Collins was doing the pre-match stuff there, the bold JC. And I want a prediction from you today. You've seen the lineup. We're playing Livingston, who are an informed team. I've never even mentioned the opposition because there's so much happening at Celtic at the moment. Absolutely no disrespect intended there. They are a team that's in form and they've got a momentum running. Obviously their game against Aberdeen was postponed the other night. This is going to be a tough game today.
It does. I really do think we're going to need to score 2 goals to have any chance of victory. I can see Livingston scoring, and Livingston don't lose many goals. They haven't lost many goals, and we struggle to create. This could be a slog. So I'm going for hopefully 2-1 Celtic.
Okay, I like your optimism, Kevin. I like your positivity. And I'm positive as well that if the developments we've been hearing about in relation to big changes at Celtic Park go ahead, that those banners, that tarpaulin, won't have to be removed from the bottom tier to the top tier for next season. I think that's the biggest issue for Celtic at the moment, is losing, like the banner said that the Green Brigade put up at Celtic Park, losing the faith of 60,000 Celtic supporters. Now, Kevin, the players are on the park. We're going to go and join the action. Thanks everybody for getting involved in the pre-match. We'll be back at half-time, hopefully to talk about a scintillating performance by Celtic. All that's left for me to say is thank you again, Kevin Graham, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.